Hey, hey, hey. Welcome back to Purposeful Productivity. This is night two of the Iron Sharpens Iron Summit, which is all about minding your business. If you are and where you are a bivocational professional, meaning you have a corporate, a government, or whatever kind of career, and then you've got something else, a part time business, a full time business secretary, you're in ministry, you're bivocational, you're doing two different things. Tonight is definitely for you, and this show is for you. I am super excited. This is our first official summit, and this is night two, volume two, session two. And tonight we're talking about scaling your impact. The impact of your business, your impact as an individual. And I have somebody with us tonight. Number one, he's a really great friend. Number two, this is his second time coming to visit us, and he's going to tear the house down today. I'm excited about that and the answers that he will give you. So I'm going to just do a quick intro and then I'm going to get him on here with you because you don't want to hear me all night. You want to hear him. This man is known as the geek speaker preacher, and he is indeed all three. He wears all three of those mantles very, very well. He speaks all over the world, teaching people how to be live video content creators. He's a master coach. He's a coach to coaches. He coaches me, and he's a great friend. He and his wife own a very successful business, and he'll tell you all about that. I want you all to welcome none other than the fantastic Kirk Nugent. Let's get him in here.
Come on, come
Hey,
on,
hey,
come on.
hey.
Hey. It's so good to be here. I have been waiting. I have been listen, I I even swapped out my earphones in the backstage because I was like, nah, I'm not going with these new ones. And the new ones are great, but I said, no, let me not do that. Here's what I want to say real quick, just as we get started tonight. Florence, everybody wants to hear from you. I just want to make that one slight correction. This is your channel. These are your people. This is I want to say pulpit, but this is your brand. And I'm so excited and honored to be back one more time. One of the things, I know we got a lot of ground to cover tonight, but one of the things that she said in the intro that I don't want anybody to miss is expanding your influence. One of the things I love about content creation, and of course this is what Florence is doing right now, is being able to serve at scale. Come on, somebody in the chat, go ahead and just type serve at scale. SERVE, the at sign, SCALE, serve at scale. What does that mean? That means I can create one video, she can create one video, and it can serve for years to come. It can serve long after she's gone. It can answer that question. It can provide that value for an indefinite amount of time for an indefinite amount of people. Far more than you could ever have in consult sessions, far more than you could ever do one-on-one with, far more than you ever get into a room to train. You can serve at scale. And that is one of the reasons why I believe that people who are purpose driven, these are key phrases I'm trying to use here to grab, I see David Hunt, to grab your attention. People who are purpose driven should look to utilize content to be able to serve the broader audience in a way that's meaningful and impactful. And I love what you're doing here, love what you've created in this brand, and I'm super excited about it. I see the serve at scale in the chat. You guys are obedient. I truly appreciate that tonight.
Yes, they are. And I am so excited we have 5 people with us already jumping off this night. But for those who are new to Equip Institute and who are new to the summit and who may be new to Kirk Nugent, what I would love to do is ask you to tell people who you are,
Sure.
your origin story, and who you serve. Who you serve,
Absolutely.
and who you
Absolutely.
serve will tell them why you're here. Sir.
Well, listen, my name is Kirk Nugent. I also go by the Geek Speaker Preacher. That's a name that was given to me, and it's fundamental to who I am and what I do. Uh, the geek part is my background in information technology, former CIO and an IT executive, former missionary as well. In fact, one of my biggest fears was public speaking. I actually, if you can believe it, I actually failed my college communications class because I could not actually pass the final exam, which was to give a 5-minute speech. I had the speech in my hand. They didn't require you to memorize it, but I couldn't even get my name out. My hands were wet. The paper was completely dripping, and I couldn't even say my name is Kirk Nugent. And one of the things that I decided to do was to really lean into that deficiency, because it was clear to me that I didn't have a problem speaking. I've always been a talker. My siblings will tell you this, but I just had this fear of speaking in public, speaking up front. And one of the things I realized is like, man, I really need to get a hold of that. So as I grew in my career, I recognized that, oh man, one of the differentiators between myself and everybody else in the IT team is that I can speak. And so if I hone that skill and that talent, I can actually rise above. I will have a talent, a skill that would put me in a different category than my peers. And so said, so done. That's why I was able to get into leadership, because I began to hone the skill set of speaking. And so I began to actually go on a speaker circuit while I was CIO here in Northern Alabama at a HBCU. I decided, let me go and do a couple of speaking engagements. That really opened my eyes to the idea that you could take one talk, you could take one presentation, one keynote, one workshop, and serve a large audience at these conferences, quite literally all over the country, and in some cases the world. And that sparked some interest in me. That sparked some interest in me. And again, this is where you get that speaker part, the geek speaker preacher. The preacher piece is just, I've always been a church boy. I like to call myself a self-professed Jesus geek, because I've always loved all things tech and media, but always from the perspective of faith and looking at it from the eyes of religion, and how can I use what I'm doing, what I'm sharing, to get it out there to a broader audience in the world. So the geek speaker preacher, that's how that kind of boils down. When I was coming towards my final years as a CIO, I didn't know they were my final years at the time. I just knew that some change was on the horizon. I just wasn't sure what. I began that whole speaker piece again. I actually started going speaking and doing different things, and also decided that one of the ways that I could really hone my skill set of speaking for free, essentially, was to do a podcast tour. What is a podcast tour, you might ask? Go ahead and write in the chat. What is a podcast tour? What is a podcast tour, you might ask? And a podcast tour is simply where you, as a speaker, or as a personality, as an influencer, as who you are, you begin to go around from podcast to podcast seeking to be a guest. And so over the course of a year, this was, I believe it was 2018 to going into 2019, over the course of a year, I was a podcast guest for 52 weeks straight on 52 different podcasts. Now, there are sometimes where I recorded as a guest on multiple podcasts in 1 week. So I wasn't necessarily, guesting every single week. There were weeks where I had time to myself because I had done multiple guest podcasts. But over the course of that year, I did 52 guest appearances on different podcasts, and I was advertising the tour. And it got to the point where, follow me, I was bringing my audience with me from podcast tour stop to podcast tour stop. It got to the point when I got to around 25, 30 stops in the tour, people were now requesting to be part of the podcast tour. They wanted to be part of what I was doing, and all I was doing was guesting. All I was doing was showing up with a message and some value to be able to provide. I didn't have any platform. I didn't have any channel. I had no podcast. I didn't even have equipment. I was just guesting. And I recognized the power of audience growth, retention, the power of content during that year doing my podcast tour. And at the end of that year, you know what happened? The pandemic hit. And I decided to go on my own, and that's where, as they say, the rest is history. I began my channel and began to put out content on tech, media, and leadership. And the media part is what caught first. This is what I coach. You find the nexus of three areas and you start putting out content there, and whichever one catches first, begin to hone in on that area. I still do tech, I still do leadership, but the media part, the streaming, the content creation part, that's the part that caught first. And so that's the part that I began to hone in on, because as they say, water finds a way. And somebody in the back is like, what is he talking about? So I'll repeat it again, because water finds a way. And then somebody else is saying, okay, repetition deepens the impression, because water finds a way. Water doesn't fight against those rocks. It will find a way. It will build up and then go over the rock. It will find a hole and go under the rock, because water finds a way. It's the path of least resistance. And so when I started making content, tech, media, and leadership, and I recognized that media was the one that was going to be my meal ticket, I began honing in on that, but I still added the motivation. I still added the leadership, still added the technology under the banner of media, because I believe this is truly how it all works, which is the name of my channel. It's the name of what I do. And so that's a little bit of the backstory of who I am and what I do. And yes, for the person that's in there right now trying to Google podcast tour and recognizing like that's not even a term. Yeah. Go ahead and just chalk it up to your boy Kirk Nugent, and let me know if you're trying to go do a podcast tour for yourself. How's that?
I love it. You are already tearing it up. Podcast tour.
Podcast
For
tour.
those of you who Sherry Jones, she was here
Come
last
on.
night
Come
chopping it
on,
up.
Cher. Come on, Cher. I see you.
Yeah, she is. She's in here talking.
Yes,
Let's see,
indeed.
say hello to a few folks, and then we're gonna start
Please.
getting some
Please.
questions up here. I'm gonna start, of course, the first always in the building,
Mm,
Frank Jackson. He's also in the lounge. For those of you who are already registered, come on in the
I
lounge. You
see the
got the
wrench.
link
I see the
today.
wrench.
You see the wrench.
Yep.
And Yolanda B, Ravens Talk with Yolanda. So glad to have you in the building. You know,
Yolanda
one
B,
of my
what's up,
sheroes.
sis?
And we have David Hunt. That
Maestro.
songbird is out
Love
there,
it.
David. We should be seeing you in the lounge. I don't know why. And Yolanda, I don't know why y'all faking. I don't know why you faking. And she's
Oh, my
saying she's so
word.
excited for tonight's show.
I am
I
excited that
am
all of you are
excited.
here.
I'm excited.
Absolutely.
And here's another moderator, the emotional
The
CEO, who will be
emotional
with her
CEO.
with us later this month. He also happens to be my brother
Come on.
and designer extraordinaire, marketing professional, all the things, all the
Love it.
things,
Love it.
all
Love
the
it.
things. David Hunt is always doing something. First non-newbie to
Dave.
first non-newbie to claim newbie. And yes, happy Friday, Live Tribe. Now, somebody's being real official here. Welcome,
Welcome,
Mr.
Mr.
Nugent.
Hey, I'll take it, man. I'll take it. I'll take it. Coach Kirk, Kirk, you know, Geek Speaker. I don't listen, whichever. Share, you got it right there. That's the one. Water
Yep.
finds a way. We would
Water
all do
finds a
well
way.
to follow
Water
the
finds a
example
way.
of water. That's
Absolutely.
right. That's right. It
So
never stops. It never stops.
it
It
never
never
stops.
stops. Water will find a way. Even if you dam it up. Oh God, I feel my health
It's
coming
still
up.
gonna find a way.
It's gonna find a way. It will just rise above whatever it is you put in its way. Water will crest that bad boy. I've tried my best to stay good tonight. Water will find a way. We could all do well to take some lessons from water. All right.
Under it,
You
over it, wear it
come on.
down,
Come on. Come
something,
on.
push it
Come
out of
on.
the way.
Come on.
It's gonna find a way.
It's gonna find a
Find a
way.
way.
That's right.
So I have a few questions.
Come on. Let's dive in. Let's dive in. We got time tonight.
I got questions. I got questions in the words of Yolanda B. I got questions.
Come on.
So I when you think about scaling in your business, and I really
Mhm.
want to think of, we talked about this earlier today, this bivocational person.
Yeah.
And this person who you've got something you're doing and you've got something else you're doing. You're
Mhm.
professional in two different senses. Maybe it's ministry, it's your, in
Profession. Yep.
IT or whatever, and or
Mhm.
maybe it's you're doing nonprofit work. You're bivocational. Um, you've got to have, I believe, some goals
Yes.
before you start thinking about scaling. But can you talk to the importance of having those main business goals set
Mhm.
as
Yeah.
a starting point
Yeah. Yeah.
to thinking through what is my strategy for scaling this thing I'm doing? Either side,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Let's talk to it. Even, regardless of the business that you're in, um, you are probably looking to serve someone. If you're regardless of the business industry, the niche, whatever your expertise is, you want to use that expertise to serve someone. And my wife is a avid member of BNI, Business Network International, and they have it's a large international organization. She goes to chapter meetings no matter where she is. If we're in Florida, she'll find a chapter and visit just because she continues to build out her network. She's a web designer and I do video content. So our business is very well matched and married. So we are able to serve our clients with a full suite of offerings. But regardless of your business, you are probably looking to serve someone. One of the things I love about BNI is, the format of a typical BNI meeting is where you have guests that come, and these guests are probably businesses, not probably. Majority of them have some service that they're either representing or that they offer themselves, and they come there to share. This is where I am. This is what I do. BNI gives all the guests an opportunity to introduce themselves. You get your 15 seconds. That's what they call it, 15 seconds. Anytime you go and visit a BNI chapter, they'll tell you, hey, you got 15 seconds to share your thing. So when I stand up at a BNI chapter, I say, hey, my name is Kirk Nugent, also go by the Geek Speak Preacher, and I believe that your live stream is your digital storefront. Because there's no better way to go from busy and broke to peaceful and paid than for your ideal customer to see you do your thing while live. Because content and online video is the cheat code to drastically cut down the time it takes for somebody to know you, to like you, to trust you. And every marketer knows that's the three components you need in order to do more business. Pause. Once I finish saying that, everybody in the room is making note of where I sat down because they're going to come and talk to me after my 15 seconds is done. How do you scale? You've got to have some goals in mind for your business. One of the reasons why I bring up BNI is because BNI has this phrase called givers gain. Givers gain. It's their mantra. It is, you can't go very long in BNI without hearing this phrase, givers gain, something that they borrowed from people of faith, but we'll get into that at a later time. But givers gain essentially means seek to serve. When you seek to serve, you will achieve your goals, whatever those goals might be. Setting realistic, impactful goals is a lost art in today's society. And so what Florence has asked, this first question that we're kind of setting the foundation with is, what is your goals? And I pose that to the audience as well. What are your goals? Like no BS, right? No pretense. Let's just keep it a buck. All right, let's be honest. What are your real goals? And for every goal that you can quickly rattle off, my question to you is, why is that a goal? Why do you want to achieve that thing? I do this in coaching all the time. Why do you want to be a content creator? Oh man, I want to have influence. Why do you want to have influence? Man, I want people to like and subscribe. I'm like, why do you want them to do that? That's not a big enough why. Why do you want that? Man, I want to show people, that it's possible. What do you want to show them is possible? The questions that we ask ourselves are so surface that we never get to the root. So what is it seems like on its face, okay, I just need to write down a couple of goals so I can get to the strategy that Kirk's going to talk about, expanding the influence. No, no, no. Stay right there at the goal setting part for just a moment and be honest. What are your goals? And why are those goals your goals? And I think what most of us end up coming to, I've been in coach for a couple of years now, and I'm telling you, I've also been in coaching. And any coach that doesn't have a coach, fire that coach. So I've been in coaching and have been coaching others for a number of years now. And every time I go through this process of goal setting and root cause analysis, I always come to some version of I want my life to matter. I want to leave a legacy. I want to have impact. I want my life to matter. I want to leave a legacy. I want to have impact. And this is where I come back to, what do you have? I ask my kids this quite literally at least once a week. Why would somebody buy that? Oh, Dad, I want to do nails. Why would somebody come to you to do their nails? But I don't know. Answer the question. Why would somebody come to you for that? What do you have that is unique, that is special, that no one else has, that no one else possesses, that no one else can bring to the marketplace? My niece, my family is all over the place. My wife's sister lives in South Africa. Met and married a South African gentleman while they both were teaching English in South Korea. Go figure. So they both live in South Africa currently, and so my niece is South African. They're part of the Xhosa tribe. Okay, so I'm chatting with my niece. Her name is Sofana Naye. And so I'm saying, Sofana, you're good. You're getting ready to go from high school into college. Metric is, there's different terms for these things in other parts of the world. I say, Sofana, one of the major pieces in college is you've got to figure out how you stand out. You got to figure out what makes you different, what brings you to what you bring to the table that nobody else does. And I said to her, you are the child of a Jamaican and a South African. That's rare. Lean into the things that your lived experience gives you an unfair advantage in. She's like, I've never thought about that from the advantage part. I've always seen myself as different and apart from the dominant culture that I live in. And I've always seen it as a liability. I just wanted to blend in. I said, but you're at an age now where you need to lean into what you bring to the table that no one else can. And so I say this to you as well, as you're listening tonight. You want to set your goals, recognize that somewhere in the root of those goals is you want to have impact. You want to have influence. You want your life to matter. You want to leave a legacy, not leave a legacy. You want to live a legacy, LIVE, live a legacy. Okay. So then you're going to need to figure out what you bring to the table that nobody else has. What do you bring to the table that nobody else has? And you know what it is? It's your story. I hold up my
Who
finger
you
because
are.
it's your fingerprint. Your story is your fingerprint. There's nobody else has it. It's who you are. You bring that to everything that you do. You bring that in every room. The reason why you're in those rooms is because of your unique perspective, your unique mindset, your unique set of experiences that make up who you are.
Mhm.
So set the goal, recognizing that somewhere down the line in the root of it is the fact that you want to have impact, that you want to live a legacy, that you want your life to matter. But then look at what you bring to the table that nobody else does. When you marry those things, there's a hunger and a drive for having impact and really pushing the envelope that, generally speaking, most people never experience. And that is where, that kind of the foundation of what we want to talk about tonight in terms of expanding your influence. uh, there's no need to expand it if you're not clear on what you were brought here to do. And so setting
Mm.
the goals is super critical in terms of that whole function and fee. I want to pause right there, and hopefully I've answered that question, sis.
Absolutely. So, gang, yeah, our moderators have been putting in the chat. We've got a few other people who have joined us. With our moderators are putting in the chat. Put a Q colon. Ask your questions. Get them in early. Do not wait until it's too late.
Yeah. Please
And
ask your
I've
questions.
gone,
Get
the
the Q colon
broadcast has
going.
ended, and you're not registered to come and ask your questions in private. Ask your questions now so that they can get answered
Mm-hmm.
by
Mm-hmm.
this gentleman here, right here,
I'm
next to me.
excited to answer them. This is
He,
questions are my love language.
I was about to say questions are his love language, y'all. So come on,
Yes, indeed. I love
ask
questions.
your questions. And so one of the things, Kirk, I realized I couldn't have planned this. You reiterated Cher's message last night.
I'm seeing it in the chat. That's that.
I'm
What that
sorry,
means is
my
that there's
doorbell just rang.
what that means is that there's synergy. Hey, listen, the doorbell ringing means we're live, y'all. That just means that they ain't this ain't fake. This ain't NBC, ABC, CBS. This is real. This is live. But what that means is that there's synergy. It means that somebody up above has been stringing has been stringing together these conversations so that those who consume all of them get a full picture of what is intended for them to walk away with. And I receive that. That just means we're in the pocket right now. So let's just keep on moving, sis.
It must have been UPS or somebody or Amazon dropping a package off
They just hit that bell and walked away.
and walked away. And I'm not
Yep.
gonna anyway, we're gonna keep moving. So with that, and now that we know we've got to have goals, we've got to set goals, we've got to know why
Mm,
we're doing
what we're
what it
doing.
is we're doing.
Mhm.
We've got all of that. We're moving things forward. What are some of the challenges
Mm,
a person could run into when they say, I'm started, I'm going, and I'm ready to move forward,
yeah.
and they start hitting roadblocks? What are some of those roadblocks they're going to hit?
Um, the depending on what it is, if you're starting the business, the roadblock might be uh, lack of funds, um, uh, marketing, understanding funnels and how to bring more people into them. Um, those could be roadblocks, but mostly, and if you're starting a channel, it could be understanding the algorithm. Who am I going to talk to? What am I going to talk about? Who's this target audience? How do I find more of them? So those could be roadblocks, but many of us experience roadblocks. And I'm coming to something else in a second because I want to talk about what roadblocks represent. But many of us experience mental roadblocks more so than physical roadblocks, resource related roadblocks. I don't have the right amount of money. I don't have the right. No, it's mental roadblocks. The truth of the matter is, if you have a rock solid why, all right, your why is rooted and grounded, and it's not externally motivated. You're not going to rise and fall at the clapping and the yelling of the crowd. Then you will do what is necessary. Let me give you an example. In order for my wife and I to start the business originally, not a couple of years ago at the end of the pandemic, or no, originally when we started the business in 2009, when our son was born, we started the business recognizing that we wanted her to be able to stay home and take care of the child of our child, but I also wanted her to have a professional outlet. I wanted her to still be in the business marketplace, still working with people on a regular basis. And I knew the only way that we could do that is we started this business from home. But what did it mean for us to be able to start this business from home? It meant we had to get rid of the 2-car payments we had. It meant that we had to start canceling some of those subscriptions to Netflix and Hulu and all of the different things. We had to start really looking at our budget and paring it down so that we could afford life on one salary. We did that because our why was rock solid. That's not something that somebody will do because of something that they just had a great idea about. Man, I had this idea of starting this business. You're not going to upend your entire life for that great idea unless you have a rock solid why. So those roadblocks, what I like to call them, what I like to say they represent, um, growing pains. I like to say that they represent you your opposition can be not always, but most times opposition, roadblocks to what you're trying to achieve is an indicator you're actually heading in the right direction. Because if it was easy, everybody would do it. If it was easy, everybody would have, 10,000 subscribers, 100,000 subscribers, 1 million subscribers. If it was easy. If it was easy, somebody would have figured out how to make a microwave for being a major influencer, and you just put that thing on 2 minutes, hit the button, and wait, and then that joint would go ding,
Microwave
and then
influencer.
you would be there. Boom, I'm an influencer now. No, no. You know what makes an influencer an influencer? The road to being an influencer. What makes your favorite podcaster good at what they do is all the work they do when the camera's not on, when the microphone's off. It's the rhythm and the hustle and the drive that they're doing behind the scenes. We had a coaching monthly meetup to this midday today, and I was saying to them, you guys are doing the work, the non-limelight, behind the scenes, non-sexy work that most people are unwilling to do. And as the saying goes, if you want to live like nobody else, you gotta live like nobody else. You gotta be willing to do what nobody else is willing to do. So I look at the roadblocks and the obstacles that arise as indicators I'm on my way to the right destination. And here's the other clincher that cannot be overstated. Sometimes those roadblocks come so that you have a story. See, once you start recognizing that everything that happens to you is weighed, is this a faith space? Is weighed through the hand of a loving God and given to you, right?
What
All
what
things
did
work together for.
what did he say to the woman, to the widow?
Come
What
on,
you got?
what you got in your house?
What you got in your house? What you got in your
Listen,
house?
Listen, I was explaining to somebody the other day. They're like, that phrase, how it all works. Where in the world did you come up with that? I was like, it was a conversation that my friends and I were having. And I was telling them I'm getting ready to start a channel, and they were like, "What you gonna call it?" I said, "How it all works." And there was silence on the call. It was like 7 of us on there. It was silence on the call, and one person broke the silence by saying, "Do you own that domain?" And I said, "I do now." During the silence, I was buying it because when I said it and everybody went silent, I was like, "Okay, that's the one." And he was like, yeah, no, that actually hits. It hits hard, how it all works. And it wasn't till years later that God revealed to me where the origin of how it all worked comes from. Romans 8:28. For we know that in all things they work together for the good of those that love him and are called according to his purposes, because this is how it all works. Not that everything is good, but God works it together for the good of those that he has called for his purpose and for his glory.
Yes.
That part is unequivocal. So when you have those roadblocks coming up, as the old saying says, when that wave was coming towards the sailor and he looks at the wave and says, "What have you come to teach me? What have you come, Mr. Roadblock, Mrs.
What have you
Roadblock?
come?
I am your pupil. I sit with my pen and paper in hand, waiting for you to teach me. Because I don't plan on seeing you ever again. And if anybody who comes behind me, I'm going to tell them how to sidestep you." And that's content. You
That
talk
is
about
content. That is
expanding your
content.
influence.
That is
You
that is scaling on a whole,
come
yes.
on,
So
come
we
on.
have started getting questions. I will say
Okay,
I'm gonna start the questions,
come
and
on.
I'm gonna get them in, and I want to ask them in that segment that uh, they apply to. And actually, these questions do fit in this segment. I didn't
Right.
say this to the community just as we were starting.
Oh, you're muted. You're muted in this scene. I think you're muted. It's
I
okay.
muted myself. Hashtag mutation. I broke the content down, or today down into three segments. We're in the foundation part, just the foundational stuff we need to be thinking about, we need to
Yeah.
plan for, we need to
Yeah.
think through, and we
Yeah.
truly need to answer questions
Hmm.
before we start talking about resources. That's another segment, non-labor resources.
Resources. Got it.
And then we're going to talk about labor resources because he's a master at this part, y'all.
Come on.
Well, he's really a master at it all.
No.
But, and then it's going to say, I'm going to wrap all of that up in what you have to shift in your mindset as a leader to be prepared to
Mm,
scale. So
to
those are
be
the big buckets.
yeah,
You want to
yeah.
be thinking about your questions relative to those. So just know that's where we're going. I didn't lay that out early. I wanted to
I
get
love it.
back to it. We do
Love it.
have some other folks who've decided they wanted to come in and say hello. We got a master troublemaker. And if you bring this car up the driveway tonight, lady, Miss Tornado,
Come on, Tora.
Miss
I love
Tora,
seeing
Miss
her in the
Tora,
building.
Miss Tora, she gonna be driving that car up the driveway tonight.
Come
And
on.
I am going to greet Mr. Nay McCain. So glad to have you here with us. And you have asked some great questions. So we're going to
You
get these
have.
questions
I've
answered.
seen those questions. Yes, yes.
And welcome, Michael Flemons. Michael Flemons is part of the M3 Live Tribe. So glad to have you here
Hey,
with
Michael, what's up, fam?
us.
Always good to have you.
I'm just making sure I didn't miss anybody else who slid in. Oh, yes. And one of our other moderators, she did slide in here. Miss Inanea, moderator,
And
salute to you, ma'am.
I saw
Yes,
her pop up earlier.
yes,
I was like, "What's good, sis?"
yes. She
Love
did
it.
slide in here. So we're going to get some questions in here. And the
Mhm.
first question, actually, Danae asked all three of these questions. So we're just going to
Okay,
roll through them and I'm going to let you go
let's
through them.
roll them. Let's roll them up.
One is it okay to ask for sponsorship while starting a new business?
Absolutely. And the determinant of whether that will be successful is how sold out you are about that new business. Is how certain you are that this new business is something that people don't invest in ideas, they invest in people. So let me say it one more time. People don't invest in concepts and structures and schemes. They invest in you. They look at you and they say, this person's never going to give up. Okay, so what are they doing now? I'll invest. Get this. I have had multiple sponsors for all the myriad of different shows that I've had. But there's one guy who has sponsored every single show, not because the shows are the same, not because they even align with his brand. He sponsors it because he believes in me. So can you seek out sponsorships? Yes. Most people, when they're getting started with a business or a content platform or whatever you might call it, most people, when they're getting started, they're mostly occupied with the things that are pertaining to getting that thing off the ground. They're not really looking into sponsorships. But I think it's a great time. My first show, I emailed a company who is a live streaming platform that I was somewhat familiar with. And so, but I didn't have anybody at that show. I just literally typed in marketing at that company name and said, hey, I'm doing a live show. This is my first show. I'm doing a live show, and the show's called How It All Works. And we're going to be talking about live streaming on this first show, on this first episode. And I'd like to have you sponsor that show. What can you give me? They replied back and said, we can give you 1 free year. You can give somebody who's watching the show 1 free year of our platform, of our subscription, a 1 year subscription to our platform. So I was like, oh, that's dope. And so I advertised that when I was advertising my first show, and people showed up because they knew that platform and they knew what it was worth. And they were like, man, if he's giving away one of those, let me get in these comments section. You know what that company name is, Florence?
StreamYard.
Ecamm.
Ecamm.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was one of the two. I guessed
Yeah,
it was
most
StreamYard.
people
Ecamm.
think it's
Okay.
StreamYard because that's where most of my content started. And in fact, I was using StreamYard at the time for that first show, but
Okay.
I was already familiar with Ecamm, and I emailed, and I got an email back from somebody I had never met before. Her name is Katie.
Katie.
Now I know who she is. She's a
Uh-huh.
really good friend now, but I joke with her about the fact that that's how we met. I was starting out fresh, and I was like, hey, my second show, I had Flickr sponsor it. I had a bunch of photographers on the show, and I had Flickr sponsor that show. My first 6 shows, I had sponsors for every single show, and I was giving away stuff on those shows. These are brand new. This is a brand I had no audience. And we're talking 10, 15, 20 something people coming in the chat. Why? Because I
You were
drew
giving
them
things away.
there with the giveaways, but I held their attention with the content and the value that we were providing. So why did Katie invest in me? Why did I think his name is Richard from Flickr? Why did these people invest in me? They didn't invest in the show or the concept or the idea. They invested in somebody who had put the systems and the processes in place for this platform to be successful. They invested in me. And they weren't waiting
Mm-hmm.
for hundreds of thousands of subscribers. They invested in the fact that I was willing to actually type the email and say, here's what I'm doing. Do you want to get on this train? Similar concept to the podcast tour. Here's what I'm doing. Anybody want to ride? Anybody want to jump on? And so I think that your question is so valid. Is it Danae? I think your
Danae.
question is valid, but it isn't the question isn't necessarily can I? The question is how will you do it? Because how you show up with that question is going to determine whether that question is answered successfully. I hope that makes sense. So let's
Okay,
see if we
Cher,
can
he's
grab those
coming
other
back
ones.
down your street. How you show up. He's coming back down your street, lady. How you
Yes,
show up.
indeed. I see
How
Simply
you
Obs in the
show
chat
up.
as well. What's going on, fam?
Mm-hmm.
Always good to have
Yep,
you.
yep, yep. And so she asked a follow-up question,
Talk to me.
which is I want a building to help women and men of domestic violence victims to begin a new life. How difficult is it?
Not
Basically, I
difficult.
want a building to help women and men
Yeah. Oh
who
yeah.
are victims of
Of
domestic
domestic
violence to
violence.
begin a
Begin a
new
new life.
life. How
Yeah.
difficult is it? That's a deep question.
It's a deep question, but it goes back to what we talked about earlier. And so, Danae, my assumption, and I hope that this is not incorrect. You can correct me right here in the chat. My assumption is that you have either been a domestic violence victim or you have been closely, you have had front row seats, if you will, to domestic violence of some sort. And in that part, your answer to that is going to help to round out the rest of what I want to say, because all you are really going to need to do to make that building a reality, to make that service a reality, because it's not a building. What you really want is to be able to provide a service. You want to be able to provide a ecosystem that takes people who have been victims of domestic violence, churns them back out as productive members of society without all the scar tissue. And so, see, she says survivor. Yes. So, Danae, it's time to share your story. That's it. You
Mm,
get on that bully
mm.
pulpit, you start sharing your story, you start saying, this is what it looks like.
Yeah.
This
And
is
Danae, I'm going to jump in here and just say this to you. Um, I started
awesome.
live streaming knowing less than nothing. Literally, I knew absolutely nothing about live streaming, about live content, barely knew how to
Mm,
put
mm.
the scheduled stream in YouTube. Like I didn't know anything. But I had, back to what he said earlier, I had a strong why.
The
I
why.
had a strong reason.
That's it.
And in the time that I've been streaming and now I'm doing more, adding more services, my services were already, I knew they were there because I've been serving people, I've been coaching people with
Mm-hmm.
what I'm doing outside of this before I knew anything about live video. So, what I'm going to say to you is it's okay not to know.
Yeah, it is.
Be okay with knowing that you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And then link arms with someone who knows a little bit more than you know.
More
I
than
know
you.
a little bit more.
That's the point. Oh, I love
Link
that. A
arms
little
with
bit
someone who
more.
knows a little bit more than you know. And I'm going to say this, and I have to do this right here.
Come on.
Get into a community where you can have the real conversations that are
Agreed.
not in public.
Agreed.
You can join my community, you can join the How It All Works
Oh, no,
community,
no, no. No, we're only
you
pushing
but
we're only
get
pushing your
into a
community tonight.
community where you can have real you can ask real questions, you
Yes.
can make real connections
Yes.
out of the public square. You all who have ever followed me, you hear me say this.
Mhm.
There's a point where you're not gonna get information because you're not gonna ask the question that you really need to ask. Ask
'Cause
me
it's in
how I
public.
know, and I'll tell
Yep.
you. In the public square. But
She's saying it now.
you will ask it, and if you have someone who believes in you and who is not selfish and self-centered, they're not the
Woof.
same thing.
My.
You will get what you need to make the incremental adjustments that you need to make from where you are. Where you are is not where I am. It's not where Yolanda is. It's not where Tora is. It's not where the emotional CEO is. It's where you
Mm,
are.
this is it right here. This is it
So
right here.
I'm gonna stop,
Oh,
but
man, no.
let me just connect with someone.
I
And if you need to, you can start by going to my website and you can go to the summit page, go all the way to the bottom, and you can get on my email list. If you want to
yeah.
start there, just get on the email list and start a conversation.
Oof. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no,
You
you
will
saying a
not
lot.
make that leap without support. I'm telling you, you will not make it.
T. Harvey Ecker. T. Harv Ecker shares this quote, and I know you're gonna like this one. Nobody ever died of discomfort, yet living in the name of comfort has killed more ideas, more opportunities, more actions, and more growth than everything else combined because comfort kills.
Mm, mm. I used to say I was freakishly comfortable being uncomfortable because
You
I'm I'm pretty transparent on here. And David, I'm actually going to answer your question. Um but I have this is going to sound really strange, but maybe to someone. I have never had a day of comfort.
listen.
The reason I have never had a day of comfort is every single day I look to learn something new.
Gotta
Every
learn
day.
something new. Gotta learn something new.
I have never had a complete day of comfort in my profession, in my ministry, in
Yeah.
any part of my life.
Yeah.
And there's so much that I don't know. The more
Mm.
I learn, the more I realize I don't know.
Exactly. I could not echo that sentiment more loudly. That is exactly where I find myself. The more that I know, the more I realize that I've just barely scratched the surface.
Barely
And
scratched
so
the surface. So we got
yeah,
some new people showing up
I see
here.
them. I see them. I see
They
them. I
they
love it.
they're coming through. Hey, Obs, good to see you. I was writing with you today. You know why I was writing with you today? Because I was writing my stuff for tonight and making sure it was right. And where is it? I was using this beauty. I told
Love
you,
that.
my new
Love that.
Beeler. And it's got my life scripture on it because my best friend gave it to me and he pays attention when I don't think he is.
That is awesome.
And this is somebody, a Turner that I didn't know. So I'm learning all about the Beelers.
Awesome.
So that's just a side tangent there.
That's good. That's
Tora
good. That's
says,
good.
Yes, indeed, Florence. I'm not sure what you're saying. Yes, indeed, too. We're going to
Oh,
come back
no.
to your other question.
Okay, yeah. Let's see if we get that other question. So I want us to at least get to one or two points here in terms of the questions about our
Yeah.
topic tonight. Let's get one or two more questions and let's
Yeah.
get this
Yeah.
show on the road. Here we
I
go.
didn't mean to go off.
Oh, no, we
Um,
needed that. We needed that tangent.
so she says, when you are determined not to quit, big word there,
Mhm.
essential. When you are determined not to quit, how long does that look before you knew it would be okay?
Um, if
So I'm
I
gonna while
ever
you're thinking that, can I say this? and I know there are several people tonight with us who will know who said this
Hmm.
and have heard it probably hundreds of times. And if you know this and I start saying it, just go ahead and type the rest of it in chat. It is impossible.
Hmm.
I know some people know this, to
Hmm.
stop a man or woman who will not quit.
It is impossible.
It is impossible
Yeah.
to stop a man or woman who will not quit. Someone we know very closely
Yeah.
who is a multi millionaire taught
Hmm.
us that.
Yeah. It, the what I would say to that comment, Danae, is I I very much resonate with what Florence has shared. If I get to a space where I feel like it's okay, I'm uncomfortable. I hope you catch the flip of it. If I get to a space where I'm like all my needs are met and everything is gravy, I have no complaints, everything is just kind of working the way, I'm a little leery of those moments. So I feel like I'm going to get bowled over. I feel like the other shoe is going to drop. And it's not so much that I'm living from a paranoid perspective. I what I'm recognizing is maybe I'm not pushing myself. If I find myself in a space where it's like, I feel like everything's kind of okay now, maybe I need to take a look at what I'm doing. Where can I innovate? Where can I move to the next level? What have I learned that I have not incorporated into my day-to-day rhythms? Those are spaces that I really want to exist in because I recognize those are the spaces where you can grow. So I am not looking for a scenario where I feel like it's all going to be okay. I'm looking for I'm looking for growth, and growth doesn't exist in those spaces. We shared that quote from T. Harvey Eker, but that's I don't want to beat a dead horse. And I think your question comes from, wanting some assurances. And I think in life we always want some assurances. But I think what we shared earlier in terms of these obstacles and what they come to teach us and what they represent. Most of the times I feel like these obstacles come to represent that you're heading in the right direction. And so if we hold that to be true, then I'm not looking for a scenario where I feel like everything is kind of together. And I hope that that makes sense. I really hope that that makes sense. She says, "Woo." No, I hope that that makes sense. I appreciate you, sis, for coming tonight and asking these, because there's like, there's so many other people who are not going to ask the question that you're asking, and they have the same question. They're just not willing to ask it. And so you have become a conduit for us to be able to kind of share even deeper and some more value tonight. So I thank you for that. I thank you for that. All right. Okay.
Absolutely. So we're going to shift into the resources a little bit, and we're going to talk
Sure.
about non-labor resources. My IT geek is coming out. I don't use the words that other people use. So non-labor resources. When you
Yes.
think about, because I think people need to start here first before they start thinking about labor resources personally.
Hmm.
What are some key non-labor resources do you use, or let's say it this way, you would recommend a relatively young business to consider? And when I say business, it could be a commercial business, it could be a
Hmm.
nonprofit, it
Yep.
could be strictly you're running a volunteer organization. So don't get confused
Yeah.
about what I mean when I use the word business. Your
Oh no.
life, you
Yeah.
are a business.
I know.
So
I
what
totally agree.
you
And
know,
I'm
you
tracking with you,
yourself,
sis.
you're a business. Walk
Hmm.
around on the planet every day.
Hmm. Hmm.
So what
Hmm.
are some of those non-labor resources do you suggest people start thinking about? And I'm going to say, especially as you're looking to scale your influence and grow what you want to do, and I'm thinking Danae right now,
Yeah.
young, fresh, your organization is getting started. What do you want to think about?
The right off the bat, I want non-labor resources. Not one of them that we often overlook. We skip to everything else, and that is just your Google workspace. Whether it's you have a Gmail account or you have a business email address that gives you a Google Workspace with, Drive and Docs and Sheets and all those things. But a lot of when Kanika and I first started out, a lot of what we were using was those Google Workspace resources because they were non-labor and they were a part of what we got with our email address. Now I want to take one step back. Another non-labor resource is your website. My wife and I love to say a website makes it real. We coined that phrase, I think, before some of the other, GoDaddy and some of these other bigger names started using it. But we coined that phrase. We're on record as having said that long before they ever used it. A website makes it real. When somebody's checking to see your credibility, they want to yeah, is this real? Are they serious about this thing? A website does that. A website can really help you to kind of showcase, here's who I am, here's what I do. And one of the things that we love to work with folks to do, and I want to say this, regardless of whether you work with us or not, your website should be a member of your team. It should be able to complete certain tasks and functions for you so that you aren't having to do the interfacing with people yourself. If your website should be able to be a non-labor resource, a member of your team that allows for people to drop out of the funnel onto your website and they can begin to peruse your services and patronize your business. So that's those are two major ones. Utilizing what's already at your fingertips. Are we still using Google Forms now? No. Are we still using, you know what I'm saying? But at least for us to get started, those are some of the things that we were using. And I
Mhm.
think those are definitely recommendations. The incubators couch, we always have we have a segment of the show called Resource of the Week, and we would always share different things that people could easily get their hands on and sink their teeth into that were resources for entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, business owners, small businesses to be able to get themselves across the line. Take something out of the to-do column and put it in the done column by applying a resource to it. And that's what I really like about what the segment that we're talking about right now, Florence, is that these are cheat codes. Well, it's a way of looking at these platforms and these services that enables us to get some check boxes done on our list of to-dos.
Yeah. We did have somebody ask a question. She said she was gonna be quiet, now she asking questions.
Of course she's going to ask a question because
Of
she's
course she
Tora.
gonna ask a question. "Explain non-labor resources, please."
So not people. It's not right. It's not a person. It's not a
Mm,
um it's not a Fiverr. It's not you're not, it's not a contractor. You're not hiring a virtual assistant. It's not bringing in a human resource that is labor resource. You're looking to utilize resources that are going to push your business to the next level and allow you to get more done without you physically having to do it. So I look at automation that way. I look at Calendly that way. I look at Kajabi that way. I look at Ecamm that way. I look at StreamYard that way. I look at all these platforms as non-labor resources that allow me to get a lot done with a little. If you talk about broadcast and live streaming and content creation, it used to take way more than what we currently have to do. Like, that's the fact that we're live right now and I'm sitting in a room by myself with nobody doing anything around me. That's major. So non-labor resources, yes, absolutely, that's what it is.
yeah, and one of the things I talk about a lot are these non-labor resources. The
Absolutely.
Google
Evernote. Yep.
Suite, for those
Yep.
who are in the
Yep.
Apple ecosystem, the tools that are just you already have access
Yep.
to. One of
Yep.
my absolute favorite, and I'm gonna come back to it, is text expansion,
Hmm.
because when I really begin to understand how to make a computer work for me
For
and
me.
I'm not doing all of the work
Talk about
was
it.
when I was introduced to text expansion.
Hmm.
And I was introduced to text expansion um, with a product called ActiveWords, which is still
Oh
going
yeah.
strong today. It's a
Oh
Windows
wow.
only
Hmm.
product, but
I haven't
I
used
had
it before.
scripted that thing to the end of
Come
its
on.
life.
Come on.
People would say, "How," and at the time, I could do all of that. I could put it on my computer. I had a license on my job, and
Mhm,
I had scripted so much because it had scripting in it. I could, text snippets and all kind of stuff.
mhm,
I would like set up a project and in like 2 minutes, and everybody else was taking 2 weeks. Why? Because I had
mm.
scripted everything.
Yep.
That is where I come from. Did it take me time
To
and
learn.
effort to learn
Yeah,
to do that and to
absolutely.
try some things and then add a little bit more and add a little bit more? Yes, it did. But in that doing it over time, I went from something that would take me 2 weeks to do to literally something that would take a couple of minutes in like a keystroke.
Mm, I love that. And that's what I love about the automation. When you're using some of these resources, these are the things that what she said talking about now, these are the things that help to push you across the line and free you up to do some of the work that cannot be done yeah, for your business, for your brand, for your content. These are the things that we know to be true, and we know that to be the way that they work. So that's a really great resource. And a number of others come to mind as you mentioned that one. But I think the concept of the fact that you could kind of just script some things. I mean, look, even in the an autoresponder, that's another form of automation. Scheduling
Mhm.
an email to go at a certain time, that's another form of automation. Utilizing these things so that one of the things I hate now, I'm just sharing, personal pet peeve is when I sit down to do email, it's usually at a time that has been designated on my calendar for me to sit down and respond to emails. And when I respond to those emails, um, if somebody responds back to me before I'm done getting through all my emails, it throws me off. It's just the OCD in me. It throws me off, and I have to go back and like, let me respond back to this person, and then sometimes they'll respond back again. So that schedule isn't so much a thing of I'm scheduling it because I want it to go at 8 o'clock in the morning or something like that. I'm scheduling it for later because I don't actually want them to respond right now. I want to get through my email trail. And those are some of the hacks that I use. Again, it's as almost a member of the team because it allows for that to go. And I'm standing next to somebody and they get an email from me and they're like, "You're right here." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I scheduled that last night. I just didn't want to send it to you then." "Oh, okay. Oh, well, thanks. Yeah, I'll respond later." That's exactly what I wanted. So those are the
I
types of
remember
scenarios
when
that I like.
I did that to a client. I was talking with an executive, um, at a client, and I was in her office. We were having a conversation, and the email from me came through for a report that she was waiting on.
Hmm.
And she looked at me and she said, "I just got an email from you." I said, "Yeah, I did the report yesterday. I scheduled it to deliver it today. It
Today.
was due in an hour. I wanted you to get it an hour before it was due."
Yeah. Yep.
So, like, secret here, secret squirrel
That's it.
stuff.
That's it.
Finish the work early. You don't have to tell everybody you finished the
No,
work
you
early.
didn't have to tell them.
I will often finish a report or whatever earlier. I then schedule the fact that it's finished to go out closer to the time that it's due. Why?
Nice.
That scaling your time, non-human, that gives me time to do something else. It
Else.
frees up a
That's
segment of time for me to do something else.
that's it right there. That's it. That's it.
Versus, and
I
I am terrible. Like when I tell you I'm terrible at being rushed at the last minute, I will shut down completely.
yeah.
Like my brain stops working and I will just be stuck on stupid. So that's why I do it that way. I'm terrible at it. So we
Mm.
have some other questions
Coming up, man. It looks like
that
we
are
got
coming
Tora
up.
coming in the chat,
They've
man.
decided they wanted to ask some questions. So we're gonna get them in here. This may be a longer question. Tora says, "What are some best practices or suggestions for identifying and building partnerships, back to partnerships, that help
Mhm.
scale your impact without having to expand your team?" This is a
What are
longer
yeah, what
question.
are some best practices for or suggestions for
Let's
identifying
let's put this one back up here for a minute.
building partnerships? Okay, building partnerships that help scale your impact without having to expand your team. So,
Yeah.
uh, expanding your team help scale your impact. Expanding your team. Uh, so the last half of the question, without expanding your team, I don't believe that you expanding your team is a metric for scaling your impact. So I just wanted to touch on that first because I feel like it's the easiest piece of what you asked. I don't believe in expanding your team has any impact on scaling your impact, um, because I've seen people expand their team and their impact goes the opposite direction. I think how you expand your team is going to have insight and effect on how you scale your impact. But scaling your impact, um, definitely can come from partnerships. So here's one. Here's one. I like this one. So I was doing content on a number of streaming platforms, one of them being StreamYard. And it got to the point where people uh, in the StreamYard live stream every week, they would do a town hall. People would literally say, "Yeah, Kirk said to do this in the StreamYard town hall." I went into the community groups that they had because I wanted to ensure that I was in there, I was present, and I was a member. I didn't want to be seen as a expert. I want to be seen as a member. And I would talk with people in there. I would ask questions in the group. I was telling a coaching client earlier this week, go into these groups and ask questions. He was like, ask questions. I want to answer questions. No, go in the group and ask questions, because it's the person that asks questions that is actually followed. You ever notice that? Well, you ask a question in a Facebook group and somebody will type the word what following dot 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 TTP, right? They're just they don't have the answer. They're following your question because they feel like there's an environment that has been created where the answer can be found. And so when you create an environment in these spaces where answers can be found by asking the right questions. So I go in these groups and I'm telling my coaching client, go in these groups and ask these questions. You ask the questions, somebody may come up with the answer, or you leave it for a while and then you come back and say, hey guys, I found the answer. Here's the answer. And then everybody says, hey, thanks. Hey, thanks. Oh man, thanks. Hey, oh, thanks for the answer. We're talking about expanding your impact and building partnerships. The partnerships that you want to identify are people who are serving a subset or the same set of people that you want to serve. StreamYard, it has a subset of my audience there. Ecamm has a subset of my audience there. I want to have a partnership there. I want to be on the stream show with DJ Strick, twice a month, because that is a partnership that is strategic for me to expand my impact. Does that make sense? So I'm not hiring anyone. I'm simply finding others who are also serving the community that I want to serve. And I'm finding ways to partner with them, because in my partnering with them, I expand my impact, especially if I can partner with them to be able to share value that they can't provide. So when Daniel Chi is recommending my loopback video to people in the Ecamm community while I'm not there, that becomes an entire cheat code
Yes.
for sharing your impact. That becomes an entire cheat code for actually expanding your reach, because your name is in his mouth. And he has a certain level of notoriety and clout and credibility. And when he is saying your name, you get the impact. You get the impact. When he's saying your name, when she's saying your name, when that brand is saying your name, you are now elevated. You didn't have to tell them you were an expert. They told you that this person is the expert because they're saying your name. So identifying people who are already serving the area, the audience, the people, that target market that you are serving, and figuring out ways to have them say your name, figuring out ways for them to get on their platform and have them introduce you. Because you know what happens when anybody introduces you? Oh gosh, do you know what happens when somebody introduces you? They have to give your pedigree. They have to tell people what you've done. They got to share a little modicum of your story. You don't have to say it. If they're introducing you, they have to say it. What happened when I came on the show tonight? Yeah, Florence introduced me. What happened when my masterclass went live this morning? I introduced Justin Moore as my brand deal coach. I introduce him with clout and notoriety and recognition and influence and impact. And immediately he becomes an authority figure in my space because of the way I introduced him. So how do you build partnerships? How do you identify those potential partnerships? Who's serving the people you're serving? Where is that overlap between your target market and their target market? And in the middle of that overlap is a space that you can collaborate and partner so that they can begin to share your resources with their community. Yeah, that's no team expansion necessary.
And she has a follow-up. Where would you recommend someone start if they're new to leveraging partnerships?
I think I answered it.
I think you
I
did.
do. I really do. I really believe I
think you
did.
answered it.
I think we
You
answered it.
answered it in the beginning
You
with
go.
the
You go.
original question.
You figure out where who's serving who I'm serving. Oh man, who's serving where I'm serving, and I want to be clear. Go there, and don't assume the position of the expert. Assume the position of the best question asker. The best question asker wins. Do you know that Oprah Winfrey is Oprah Winfrey because she knows how to ask the best question? Now over the years, we don't even remember the people that she's interviewed, but we remember her because she asked the best question. So you show up in those spaces, and I want to be clear that if you follow Oprah's story, it wasn't happenstance, it wasn't fly by night. She worked towards the skill set of asking the right question. You know what most people would say after they would be interviewed by Oprah? Like 9 times out of 10, they say, I shared way more than I ever intended. I talked about far more. There are realizations that happened organically while I was sitting in that chair next to Oprah because of the way she asked that question. So you go in those spaces. You don't necessarily need to assume the position of the authority figure. Every person that Oprah interviewed shared some of their clout with her. Oh gosh, I hope that you're seeing this thing. And by the end of it, we don't even remember the people she interviewed. We now know her to be the juggernaut that she is. Still to this day, people still want to be interviewed by Oprah. To this day. And you know what the agenda looks like when Oprah interviews you? Nothing. You go there ready to answer questions because she's going to ask it in a way that allows for you to have an engaging conversation. Okay, I'm done. Yeah, I'm done.
So I saw you do something. So I want you to just kind of lean into what I saw you do. People they may have missed it, but I didn't. How do you stay updated? We're getting into this is still non-labor, then we're going to hop into labor real quick. How do you stay updated on new tools and technologies that benefit your business? And I know you've been doing some stuff. So can you give us some like real live show and tell?
It comes from never being satisfied. I refuse to be satisfied. I refuse to be satisfied. I refuse to be satisfied. I refuse. I look at my setup, and people come to my home studio all the time, and they say, "Man, Kirk, man, I'd love for you to build something like this for me." I'm like, I'm actually getting ready to tear it down. What? Yeah, I'm getting ready to tear it down. What? How? No, because I'm not satisfied. I'm using it for what it is now, and I want to leverage what I have. I don't subscribe to gas. I'm not saying it's not a real thing. I'm saying I don't subscribe to it. I want to leverage every single piece of gear that I have before I buy anything else. I have a Sony A6000 camera over here. That's this shot. That's a Sony A6000. An A6000 camera with a 30 millimeter lens on it. That is an 8-year-old, 9-year-old camera. What's next to it? An A6400. That's my main shot. That's the one you guys always see. It is a very old camera. It doesn't move. It sits right here on the tripod with a Elgato prompter in front of it. When I turn around here, this is a Sony A7 II. It is one of the first cameras I bought when I was getting into the Sony ecosystem. I bought it because I was using it at my church, and I use it every now and again, but it has been sitting and collecting dust, and I was like, that's not okay by me. So I put it over here, and I put a big screen on top of it so that I can actually see myself. So when I turn around, I can actually look at the camera and not be out of frame. There's the reason why I'm able to stay abreast and on top of what I'm doing is because I consume content. And the first thing I do whenever I'm asking people about, you want to be a YouTuber? Who do you follow? Give me your top 5 YouTube channels. Oh, I don't really watch a lot of YouTube. I'm like, you want to be a YouTuber and you don't watch a lot of YouTube? Make it make sense. Exposure is going to be currency for you as you're stepping into these spaces. One of the things that it was a fringe benefit of doing a 52-week podcast tour is that I know everything that I do not like about about how I was hosted as a guest. So my guest experience is wildly curated even on show 1. Why? Because I spent 52 weeks as a guest. And I know I'm exposed to the good, the bad, and the indifferent. And I curated a process and an effective system to be able to host my guests in a way that I would like to be hosted. And then I began to teach. Are you seeing the trick? I began to teach people. You don't want to do it like that. Why? I spent 1 entire year as a guest, and I hated when people did this, even though the host never understood what it meant or what it did to their guests when they're doing that, because they don't guest. Most people, when they start out in content, they start out as hosts. I have to tell my live show host clients that you need to guest more. You got to take the invitations. Their invitations are coming. You need to start saying yes. Well, I don't really like being a guest. You need to know what it's like to be in that other seat. How do you stay up and on top of what's coming down the pike? You got to expose yourself. You have to have rhythms and processes of exposure that allows you to see what is available and discern which pieces I want to add to my setup and which pieces I do not want to add to my setup, which pieces I absolutely detest and I would not bring that into my setup. And you know why? That those things are not, wishy-washy. They're not in between, right? They're not lukewarm, as they say. You're not just kind of do you know why they're strong opinions, yay or nay? Because you have experience behind it. Exposure and experience leads to making a decision and a plan of how I want to go forward. I don't drive home to Florida through Georgia, Atlanta, Macon, and Valdosta going down 75. I don't take that way anymore. I go through Alabama, down to Montgomery, jog over onto 431, through Dothan, down to a little city called Mariana and I-10, and I jog over that way. Why? Because my experience has been that every time I drive through Georgia, I get a ticket. My experience has been every time I drive through Georgia, I hit traffic in Atlanta. And we're talking adding hours to the trip. So while the route that I go is slightly longer, it is a peaceful drive. And why have I made that decision? I've been exposed to both. And I can not only tell you that this is an easier way to go, I would never go the other way. You can take the other way if you want to. Exposure and experience help you to formulate a rock solid, not only opinion, but course of action, exposure, experience.
Wow. So we got some folks who are putting some comments up here. So she talked to when you she saw you. She saw you. Just saying, Bob Barker.
Listen, Bob Barker. Hey,
Bob
hey.
Barker. Yes. Hashtag never be
Yeah.
satisfied. And then Tora says, breakdancing without being a breakdancer started a trend. So maybe they figured being a YouTuber without watching YouTube would work.
Breakdancing with him. Lord help us.
Okay, help us. Didn't know
Help
that was
us.
a thing. So
Oh,
I'm going to ask you
yeah.
one question regarding labor.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I think this is your secret sauce. But how do you know when you need more help and what signs should you look for? And how do you bring on team to help you? And there's
Mm.
some secret in there that I know some things I know you do that hopefully it will
Well,
empower somebody tonight when they hear you.
so there is, man, listen, knowing knowing that the opportune time to scale is coming is super critical. I want to say, let me repeat that again. Knowing that the opportune time to scale and bring people on, actual people, is critical. It is critical. Now I want to take one step back. The the why that we talked about at the beginning, the rock solid why that is your reason for doing what it is that you're doing. It requires you to actually put together a plan of action. And in that plan of action, there is a desire for success. Are we together so far? There's a desire for this to be successful and for it to succeed. And for you to succeed, it means that you're going to have to do some introspection. You've got to do some review. And that is your opportunity to innovate. If you intend to be successful, then you also intend for this to get to a place where you can no longer do all of the things yourself. So one of the things that I always do is I begin to mentor. I begin to train. I in my at my church, I've got about, I think it's almost 20 something people now, where that we're just kind of bringing them through and getting them acclimated and making sure that they know things. In my old church, I had a set of guys, about 4 or 5 of them, that were working with me doing different things with StreamYard. Every weekend we would do the worship experience with StreamYard. That was the platform we're using at the time. I've since switched over to Ecamm, but in that particular church, that's what we're using. And then during the week, I was using StreamYard to stream people's shows as a producer. I, get this, would bring some of the guys from church to do some of the client projects. And I would pay them handsomely because, of course, the client was paying me. And what those guys recognize is that I had been preparing them. I had been preparing them to assist me in my business from the first time I asked them to come and volunteer at the church. To be clear, I never paid them at the church. But I was always preparing them towards, okay, hey, this guy, I want you to help me produce his show this Sunday. Okay, I got you. And then they helped me produce the show and I introduced them. Hey, client, this is my guy, this is the client. He's going to be running your show from now on. Oh, I like this. Thank you so much, Kirk. Boom, 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 boom. I don't even see that client anymore, except for when they pay the bill. I'm not telling you something that I think might work. I hope might work. There's an inkling of it. When I say to, doesn't matter your expertise. When I say to people, if you don't have somebody you're bringing up behind you, you're doing the world a disservice and you are killing your own opportunity to have this thing you've created live on after you're gone. And so we're talking about bringing people in. Understanding and recognizing that that moment will come means that you may actually have to add more work to your plate before it gets easier. It means I'm going to have to bring in the VA 2 or 3 months before I actually need her, because, and I say her, but it could be a man, but in my case, it is a woman. But the reason why I'm doing that is because I'm sending her to the courses. I'm making sure she has taken the Canva design certification. I'm making sure she has those things. I'm making sure she's actually gone through vidIQ's whole slew of content and training so she can come up with a proper description and title. Not because she is just a generic VA. She's going to be my VA, and I need my VA to be able to do these things. No, I can answer you by myself. I can put no. I need you to design some stuff. I need you to come up with that thumbnail. Are you feeling what I'm saying? You train them towards the things that you want to get off of your plate. What is essential and what is not essential? Put everything in those categories. And whatever you put in the category of non-essential, you need to be looking around, being sensitive to the opportunities to bring somebody in to take over that piece, whether it's somebody or it is a resource or it is some form of automation, so that you are freed up to do the innovative work that no one else can do. And that is essential. Greg McCowan's book, Essentialism, lives between the tensions of what is essential and what is not essential. Frank Johnson says, tell him to save some for the lounge. But I'm simply saying to those who will listen, you're actually setting yourself up for failure if at the outset you are not looking to get so successful that this thing will require more than just me. And because I know that, I will take the time, literally plan it out on my calendar every as long as it's not first Fridays at noon. I meet with my team on Zoom and I walk them through, this is what we need to do. This is what we need to do. And one of my guys said to me just last week, he was like, when you used to tell us that we're taking too long in between scene changes and between, hosts switching out in the Praise Cafe at church, when you used to tell us that, it didn't click until you brought me onto that project where we were doing that streaming thing for that 3-letter organization here in Huntsville. And I recognized that time, because you had trained us, that time I needed to get that thing right. So he was able to identify, these are the pieces that I have been sharing with you and showing you. It will serve you long, even whether you're in my ecosystem or not. But having spaces is ultimate cheat code where you can actually pour into others and train them with no dime, right? With no professional skin in the game is super critical. So personally, I always have a volunteer outfit for my work. I recently took on a weekly project where I have to use my DJI gimbal for my Sony camera and record video. It's not a skill set that I had really honed, but so now since the beginning of the year, since 2025 began, I've been doing this video every week. I've been recording with this gimbal every week. I've been capturing content and footage every week with that gimbal, to the point where now I'm getting so good. There's others at the church who are saying, I really need an opportunity to shadow you and what you're doing with this thing. My point is, you understand your deficiencies. You create volunteer opportunities to be able to learn how to get better at that thing and then begin to market it. Then you add it to your use case. You add it to your ability statement. You add it to your resources. You add it to your repertoire. This is now a service that somebody can purchase from you. And I just had my first client purchase a series of videos that I recorded with him out and about. We did 7 of them in one day, 2 to 3 minutes each. We delivered that. My video editing team in the Philippines, I shared the videos with them. They edited the videos. We delivered it to the client yesterday, and the client is ecstatic with the final product. My point is never be satisfied. Constantly partner with those who are in the same spaces as you, looking to serve the similar audience as you. My point is recognize that this thing that you're doing is going to be so successful that I need to plan time into my regular scheduled program to train someone, to bring alongside people, to create the systems and the processes for automation. These are the things. It's everything that we've talked about tonight. It isn't jumbled pieces. They're all building blocks towards being successful. Whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a content creator, doesn't matter. Fill in the blank. If you have that rock solid why, you have that that immovable force that causes you to continue to put one foot in front of the other, refusing to quit, then you need to plan for success. And planning for success looks like creating the systems, leveraging the resources you currently have, both non-labor and labor, even if you've got to train the labor towards what you want it to be. This is what it requires. And I hope that this thing has been meaningful for all of you tonight. So Florence, I just can't thank you enough for the opportunity. I don't know if we're landing or not, but I
We're
see
going
that
to land because I think you actually wrapped up that mindset. I had some questions. I have questions. I have questions around mindset, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to shift it slightly. We've got some folk in the lounge and some more may come in. We're going to spend a little bit of time with you, not all
Yeah,
night.
let's
Let
go.
you get back to your family. But to kind of put a pretty bow on this what you shared with us, because there's been so much. I'm going to have to study this over and over again. Just as who you are from your own perspective, I'm going to let you share what you from your heart want to share with the community.
Yeah.
To close us out. And then everybody, we're going to close the broadcast out. If you registered, you can come on into the lounge. You get a chance to ask questions that are private, that will just stay where they are. They'll stay in the lounge. They won't go anywhere. The questions and the answers. And then we'll see you back here next week.
Next week. That's right.
It's been my pleasure, Kirk, to have you here. I want to say this. You going to take us out of here. So it's all yours, sir.
The final thing I want to share tonight, we're talking about expanding your influence, is something that was said to me earlier today, but I want to couch it slightly different than my brand deal coach shared. And it's a quote that I've touched on before, by John A. Shedd, where he says, "A ship in harbor is safe. It's safe there. But that's not what ships are built for. A ship in harbor is safe, but that's not what ships are built for." And for many, you can go many different tangents with this. You could think of it from the perspective of, oh man, I don't want to play it safe. I want to get comfortable being uncomfortable. All of those are great. But the area that I want to go with this is the ship has to take the ship out to sea. I hope that you see that. The ship is the one determining that it's still in port. Yes, a captain will come onto the ship, but even that captain is guiding the ship towards sea, towards rough water, towards the potential opportunity for failure and shipwreck. The thing that my brand deal coach said today during the masterclass was, there's no one coming, y'all. You are the person. You are who you have been waiting for. You are the sum total of all your experiences. You get to, not have to, not that you want to, you get to determine what your next steps are going to be. You want it to be said of you in 50 years when people are looking back at the legacy that you have lived? Do you want it to be said that this person played it safe? That this person showed us what was possible by leveraging everything that they have for the off chance that it just might work. That the outcome could be greater than they ever imagined. Do you want it to be said of you that this person took from their time and schedule, they thought it not robbery to turn back and train someone else and ensure that they don't have to go through the hell that you went through? A ship in harbor is safe, but that's not what a ship is meant for. Ship is meant to be out on the open waves. What are you built for? What have you been running from? What business has been in the back of your mind for years? What is the thing that your friends constantly call you and ask you to do, and you've never realized that all of them call you for this thing? They all see in you a value that you haven't tapped into for yourself. You're working in a totally different career. Ship and harbor is safe. That's what you want to be. You want to be safe. I want to step into the unknown and laugh when my foot lands on something solid to catch me from falling, because God has orchestrated my steps in such a way that every move that is made, I recognize there's a potential for miraculous things to happen. I don't want to just take life as it is. I don't want to take it for granted. And I challenge you, I leave you with this tonight. This is my parting message to you. I hope that you're listening. I hope that you're locked in right now, whether you're watching it live or you're watching on replay. I challenge you to take a thoughtful moment to ask yourself some hard questions and chart a course forward that, regardless of whether it is successful or not, that you can be proud of. There's no savior. There's no entity. Nobody's going to pluck you out of obscurity. You are the opportunity that you have been waiting for, because you were built for something greater. It's your boy, Kirk Nugent, Geek Speaker Preacher. Thankful, truly and extremely grateful for the opportunity to come and hang out with Florence and the entire crew here at Iron Sharpens Iron. We will see you around these internet streets or in the next video. Grace and peace, fam.